Our spiritual yearning is actually our intuition of another reality, or a real reality, I should say. The yearning itself arises because that greater reality is already starting to assert itself upon our egoic state of consciousness. We don't even really feel a spiritual yearning until the infinite is already starting to assert itself, until it's already to some degree starting to arise in our consciousness. The first indication that the infinite is starting to arise in our consciousness is our yearning for the infinite. The yearning itself will be an indication that it's beginning to arise. And so there's no quick way to deal with this. There's no way to just sidestep the fear. As I said, at some point, you will be ready and you will face it. And you will, whatever it seems to be threatening you with, you will not turn away until it really can't threaten you with anything. Which doesn't mean that you're not scared, it just means you don't turn away. If you don't turn away, then the fear itself you just move through it, it just can pop, like a bubble pops. Like a dream pops when you wake up in the middle of the night and you realize, oh, I've been dreaming. I've been dreaming. I've been dreaming. And until we're ready, then we will have that sort of instinctual contraction from the fear. Sometimes people say, I can't help it. The contraction away from the infinite happens so instantaneously that I can't really stop it. Well, maybe it's, apparently you're just not ready when that happens. That's okay. Relax with that. Relax with it. Relax in the certain knowledge that when you're ready, you will simply let go. And if you're not ready, you can try every trick in the book, and you won't be letting go. So a kind of readiness is key here. It's a kind of readiness that allows you to just turn inwardly and encounter and face that fierce kind of edge that can arise in your experience where you feel a kind of fear that's just unreasonable kind of fear because, again, nothing's happening, right? Nothing's actually happening in your external world. But on the inner world, if I may speak using those terms at all, a whole lot can be happening. We can actually be in the process of transitioning from one state of being to another state of being. It's like, what does a caterpillar know about being a butterfly? Well, it doesn't know anything about being a butterfly. A caterpillar may transform into a butterfly, but a caterpillar really knows nothing about the life of a butterfly. The only way it can know about the life of a butterfly is to let go, enter a cocoon, let go, and become one, and then emerge and become one and be one. You can imagine a caterpillar that's fascinated with butterflies, would love to fly around, has a lot of fantastic ideas about them, but inherently still is terrified in the end of being a butterfly, because that would mean relinquishing everything they know about the life of a caterpillar. So these kind of inward transitions do come to us. They are trying to occur. And part of what allows us to move through them is just to recognize the terms of the deal here, the terms that are going on, the fact that you can't negotiate with this kind of fear. You can't make it all go away and then let go into the infinite. You let go right in the middle of it. But you let go when you're ready to. You shouldn't be forced into this kind of letting go. There's a timing that's very, very important. No one should be forced or even overly encouraged to let go into this sort of, the resistance to this sort of existential kind of fear prematurely. It's not, because if you feel like you're forced into it, you probably won't really let go all the way anyway. When you really let go, it's almost like a fruit falling from an apple tree when it's totally ripe. It just falls. The day just comes, and all of a sudden the old inner threat arrives, and you're just simply ready. You are just simply immovably present right there. You do not turn away. There's nothing that your unconscious can throw at you that's going to get you to run. And on that day, those fears are defeated. They're defeated not because you solved them or you got bigger than them. You defeat them by simply not responding to them in the deepest possible way. And only through doing that do you then realize there's really nothing to fear to begin with. So I can tell you there's nothing to fear to begin with, but we have to find that out for ourselves. And we only find that by meeting that fear. You know? That's, in the end, the only way that it's done. And we will meet it about the time that we're ready to meet it, or when our times run out and we have to meet it. It's why very often people will meet that kind of fear at death, when time runs out. When they have no more time, or they have a very limited amount of time, something in some human beings, quite a few anyway, will just realize they've run out of time. There's no more time to waste. Where am I going? What am I avoiding? Let me just face it all right here, right now. Let me face my own mortality right now, because it's going to happen. I'm running out of time. I may only have, let's say, days to live or hours to live. I might as well face what's happening. And as soon as that person faces their own mortality, at that instant, their mortality no longer has a hold on them. There's no more fear about it. In fact, the very thing they feared may end up to be experienced as a great and overwhelming revelation of well-being and fearlessness. You know, somebody that's faced their fear of their own death, and through facing the fear of their death has gone through it. That's the key. We go through these fears. We don't go around them. We don't solve them. We don't fix them. We don't create a big enough story to where it all looks nice and pretty. We just simply move through them, you know? And look at all the fears that you've moved through in your life up to this point. All sorts of moments of fear, of anxiety, of doubt. You can't get very far in life without the ability to move through fears to some extent. The new job interview, asking someone on a date. The list is just endless of those moments that create fear, much less the big moments. But we've all moved through many, many fears or many anxieties because necessity just dictates that we do move through them. And we, after a while, when we get enough experience, we realize just because we're afraid doesn't mean anything's wrong. Doesn't mean a mistake's being made. Doesn't even necessarily mean we're in danger. It doesn't mean we're in physical danger. In fact, most of the times when we experience fear in the modern age, we're not actually in physical danger. We feel ourselves to be in psychological danger. And those psychological fears, we have to be able to stop. Right in the face of them. Stop. And just be still. That's the surrender, to just stop and be still in the midst of fear. Because in the end, that's the one gesture that fear can't overcome. If you just stop. And I don't mean be still like you're holding on and really trying to be still. I mean a still, the kind of still when you let go, when you relinquish your positionality, your fixed way of being, when you just let go. And you know, I've had hundreds of people over the years ask me, how do I let go? How do I let go? How? As if there's a how, as if it's like a recipe. Well, you do this, and you do this, and you do this, and then you let go. That's not really how it happens. We let go. Depends on how unconscious we are. If we're really unconscious, the only time we really let go is when it just becomes overwhelmingly painful to hold on. When we feel desperate enough and the holding on is painful enough, then we let go. That's when we're in a pretty unconscious state. We've all been there. Then there's a kind of letting go where we just know the situation requires it. We may or may not like it, but we just, through a kind of understanding or a kind of wisdom, we just know the situation calls for it. And we can let go in those sort of situations. Then there's a kind of letting go that happens almost purely by kind of wisdom or love or combination of the two, where we just know. Wisdom tells us the only intelligent response, the only response that the universe is looking for is just for me to let go. And it's also a kind of love, because love will also get us to let go. Love will also allow us to move through fears that we wouldn't normally move through, right? So if you love truth, if you love God, if there's something, if you've connected within yourself to what you love, to what you would really let go for, you know what I mean? Something you love enough to where you would really let go for it, then love can be a very powerful force to pull you through these deep existential fears, you know? Like I said, it can be love of truth, love of reality. It can be love of just life itself, realizing that for me to stay in this constricted state of consciousness really isn't a really helpful thing to the world around me, to the people I know, to the life forms around me, that to let go is actually a loving act, to not hold on, to relinquish this illusion of control that we human beings seem to want to possess so much, that it's not only good for you, it ends up to be a good gesture towards life itself. And that's then an act of love. So we can also let go as an act of love, not just as an act of, I'm just fearless and I'll let go and I'll, there can also be this sort of more tender quality to it, a softer kind of response, a loving letting go, rather than a sterile, okay, I'll let go, there can be a loving, compassionate, benevolent letting go, where you let go almost like for the sake of all beings, so that it's not just about you. You connect to a wider reality and a wider concern and a wider compassion, and it brings up capacities that you don't normally find when it's just about you. So that can be really useful too, to connect all of this to the greater community of beings. I've always felt that spirituality itself needs to be connected to a real sort of sympathy for the well-being of all beings, in order for our spirituality to evoke the very deepest resources within ourselves. They only come to the fore when our circle of regard, circle of concern, reaches out beyond ourselves. It can include yourself, but reaches out beyond yourself and starts to embrace the world at large, you know? Then we have resources available to us, resources of compassion, of love, of fearlessness that we find very, very difficult to access when it's just about me and my process, and if I can let go for me, you know, if it's, I'm not only let going for me, I'm letting going for all the beings that I will interact with in life, you know? That then your letting go takes on a different dimension, that it's not simply about you as an individual. That can be really important to some people, to a lot of people. It can be really important to feel into this wider dimension that we're all living in. You know, we're all living in this place where everything is completely and absolutely interconnected with everything else and affecting everything and everybody else. And so therefore, we don't want to get too self-conscious about it, but what we do and what we don't do matters. It matters not just to us, but it matters to all beings that we are interconnected with. We do play a role in each other's lives and each other's existence.